All right. Well, it has been a minute, but we are back. This is episode 4 now of On Your Left. I just realized I don't have a title for this yet. We're probably going to call it something like Maturity in the MCU or something like that, because the main focus of today is to talk about which Marvel movies, are the most mature. I got this idea from my friend Jake, so don't know if you're watching, Jake, but shout out to you if you are. This is from you. As always, I'm Jared. It's good to be back, and I'm here with Kobe. Kobe, how are we doing?
Doing good. It's been busy since the last time we got together, but I'm glad we're doing this again. Always good to be here.
Yeah, we've both been really busy. I think the last episode was before the new year, and we wanted to do more of these more frequently during the year, but we've both been very busy. Starting the years off strong, which is great. We could do an episode just on that, but we are here to talk nerd content and not quite our personal lives, but sometimes they mix quite often. So
quite a bit.
We are calling a little bit of an audible. We had a different intro planned. We're still going to talk a little bit about what we originally wanted to talk about, which was Captain America Brave New World, and the breakdown of that, our reactions to that. I've seen it twice now. I don't know what your count is, but I'm curious to know how many times you've gone to see this in theaters.
I'm at 3.
Okay, I expected more, but that might also say a little bit about what we think of the movie. So before we get into that, we were going to shoot this originally last week on, what day was that?
I think we're supposed to do it on Wednesday or Thursday.
Well, whenever Marvel started dropping the cast of Avengers Doomsday, and I know you texted me right away, like, this is happening, the chairs, and I was like, what? And lo and behold, we had what will now become an infamous chair announcement.
A pop culture event like no other.
Interesting strategy from the MCU. I know a lot of people liked it, some did not. But regardless, we have some 27 revealed cast members for Doomsday. And we just want to talk about that and some reactions we have, some thoughts.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you watched the full stream, yes?
I didn't watch the full stream. I watched a bit of it and I had it on. And for people who don't know what I'm referring to, basically, there was Steam that we were going to get some big Marvel news, I believe. So it was Wednesday. It's coming back to me now. And nobody wanted to spill what they knew. They just knew a big announcement was happening. And they started a live stream and everybody freaked out. And then Chris Hemsworth's name pops up on a chair, the chairs that they sit on set. So everybody started speculating. We're talking about Thor 5, or are we talking about Avengers? What's happening here? And then more chairs started popping up. And basically, just to sum up the live stream, every 12 to 13 minutes, the camera would pan, and we would get a new chair with a new name on it, and we would get some music. There'll be like a little bit of swell of music, so depending on what movie they're in, they would kind of get their theme or something like that. So that was kind of nice. And yeah, it went on for almost 5 hours, and I think it was an interesting and cool way to do it. I know not everybody probably feels that way, but what I thought was innovative about it was that there was a bit of anticipation for who was going to show up next, and I think they delivered on that, because some of the names that popped up are characters and actors and actresses that we haven't seen in this universe for a while. And so I'm going to just highlight a couple. Well, what I'll do actually is I'll start with the ones we haven't seen for a while. So Patrick Stewart, who, as you know, plays Professor X. Ian McKellen, who plays Magneto. Alan Cumming, who played Nightcrawler, and that was all the way back in X2. And then Rebecca Romijn, who played Mystique for the very first time. She is back. And then James Marsden as Cyclops. So those are 5 names right there that kind of jumped out at everybody. And then you had a couple others, such as like Kelsey Grammer, who played Beast in a post-credit scene in The Marvels, if you watch that one all the way through. And then some names that we're very familiar with. Obviously, we've seen Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. We've seen Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier. Vanessa Kirby, Pedro Pascal are names that we know are coming up as cast members in the Fantastic Four, but it's just interesting that they're willing to let us know, hey, they're going to be popping up in this, which I think a lot of us assumed. But but the full list of 27 names, what do you think when you see some of these names, and how do you think about the announcement?
I do think it's interesting, some of these, and particularly even just starting with Chris Hemsworth. And actually, I'm checking right now and pulling up the movie on my iPad here, but I have to sit through an ad, thanks Disney Plus, because I believe at the end credits of Thor: Love and Thunder, we just got a Thor will return message, not Thor will return in Avengers Doomsday, just Thor will return.
Just return.
I think to your point, starting it off with Chris Hemsworth, it's like, okay, this doesn't necessarily have to be Avengers Doomsday. This could be a new Thor movie. This could be, who knows? I don't know if they're in talks of another Thor movie that you've heard of. I feel like I just see all the fake fan stuff that people make, and it's like, oh yeah, Thor 5. It's like, this isn't actually going to happen, but it's a nice idea. I would love to talk about. I have no problem personally with the mutants we're seeing here as far as the actors that they're choosing to portray them, since some of them have been portrayed by multiple actors and actresses. But I know the main criticism that I've heard from other content creators that I watch around this space is some of them aren't thrilled that we're seeing the actors from the second X-Men movie. Like they think we should move past them and move on. And I think that's an interesting take. I don't know. I feel like in that same breath they talk about, hey, those were the only good X-Men movies. Like after 1, 2, and Days of Future Past, kind of throw the rest of them out the window. So I feel like you're kind of saying two things in the same statement there. But I think, yes, they were obviously going to... I think it's good to see them in there just because, with the Fantastic Four joining, we all knew that was going to happen. So it's like the mutants are now becoming a larger part of the MCU. We knew that was going to happen, and I love seeing that already in Doomsday. What I think is interesting is that I'm sure we will get more people announced for the movie at some point, because that's my biggest thing is I'm looking at this list. Obviously a lot of these I did expect to appear, but Tom Holland, no mention in here, but I would assume he would probably be somewhat involved in this. I don't know, and maybe I'm over assuming, but
no, he's and that's probably my biggest gripe with a lot of people online. This is going to be a theme in this episode: patience. People aren't very patient.
Yes,
you get a list of 27 names, and everybody's like, "Where's this person? Where's that person? This person's going to have to be included." And the answer is yes. I want to say Endgame had something like 40 to 50 characters, main characters, before we got to all the side characters and the flat, blink and you miss cameos and things like that. This movie is going to probably have upwards of 60, maybe even more than that. These are just the ones that A, they're probably going to focus on in marketing, and B, that have officially signed on, because they have to pick some characters to focus on, and they have to hold some things back. So I'm very willing to bet that they're not going to confirm some characters, and we'll get some more names that are confirmed. And then it's the big Marvel marketing machine of what do we want to show them, what do we want to hold back, because you can't reveal everything, and they shouldn't. The reason Infinity War and Endgame did so well, a big part of it was the things that we had no idea were coming. Endgame probably had one of the best marketing campaigns that I can remember. We speculated a lot, but we knew basically nothing, and we saw basically the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movies in any footage that we saw, essentially, and anything that they talked about. They did a great job. So I fully expect to see something like that here. We're going to definitely get some confirmations because, we're in a digital age and spoilers and things like that. But yes, there will be more names. There will be more characters. This is not it. But it is really exciting to see, just look at the diversity in the cast here with the different movies and projects.
Right, and I feel like, with some of these, with who they chose to announce now versus who they might announce later or might not announce until we actually see them on the screen. I feel like some of these make me think a little bit more like Namor's coming back, and I'm like, okay, in what capacity is Namor coming back? I'm very intrigued by that. Or even just the fact that we know we're going to see Shuri and M'Baku both back again. I want to know, so is M'Baku going to be the king of Wakanda, and is Shuri still going to be the Black Panther? Are we going to have, because for the longest time we've had those roles played by the same person, so are we going to have those roles split now for kind of the first time on screen for an extended period of time? I don't know. So I feel like these announcements make me think a little bit more about what are we going to see, and even just we have do we have all of... No, we don't, I think, have quite all of the Thunderbolts on here, but I think we're really only missing one.
And there's speculation about what that means. There's been speculation about who's going to die.
Oh, sure.
Because, let's be honest, Thunderbolts is very much being compared to Suicide Squad, all of DC. And so the big thing about that kind of a project is that every character can be expendable. So people are reading out of that. I'm going to wait and see in May, although I'm sure a lot of theories are already out there about who's not coming back.
Yeah, and I guess I didn't even think about that till now. That doesn't surprise me. It does make sense because that was something I was going to bring up. They even talk about that in the kind of, I think in the trailer where they're kind of the bad guys, or the portray antagonist is kind of like, you guys aren't superheroes here. A lot of you don't really have superpowers, or at the most you have the super soldier serum, which really just makes you an enhanced non-super person kind of. So what are you going to do against me, basically? And that is an interesting...
It's going to be fascinating, for sure.
So, but 27 confirmed actors and actresses dropped, all culminating in Robert Downey Jr., who we all knew was coming back. I think you had to end the video that way, though, because it's hey, this is for sure. This is the one we all knew was coming back. Even with some of these, you were 95% sure, but the one you were 100% sure about, because we already spoiled it, was RDJ as Doctor Doom. So, Yeah, I think that was an interesting way to do it, and I don't know if they'll do it again, but obviously they have to probably feel like they have to keep topping themselves or changing things up a little bit from what we've seen. And it is hard, as we've talked about, coming off of the Infinity Saga, which was, to this day, I think still just such a amazing project in cinema that will not be rivaled, I think, for quite a while. And then the only other note I had on that was, oh wow, I didn't realize it was that early. So Paul Rudd was number 6, and I know they had the reveal of the tiny chair for Ant-Man, which I would have actually loved to see live, because I probably would have. That is pretty funny, and that's very, I think, Paul Rudd coded. I would have loved to know if that was like his idea or the producers. But I'm excited to see him come back and continue to be part of these projects, especially given that when Ant-Man originally came out, I feel like it was very much, at least interpreted as a just a humor kind of piece, and not really super serious. So, but I am very excited. And how long are we waiting for this now? Do we have an updated date, or has the date changed at all for release on Doomsday?
So, the new date for Avengers Doomsday is May 1st of next year, so 2026.
Nice.
I've been looking at all these dates and misremembering that it's 2025. So that's been a problem.
Yes,
and I was thinking that was 2 years away, and it's not. It's next year now. So Avengers Doomsday, May 1st, 2026, and then Avengers Secret Wars, May 7th, 2027.
Nice.
Marvel loves putting the Avengers movies in May.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And especially when it's like they're doing it like a two-parter type thing. That has kind of been their MO. So yeah, we get those two movies a year apart. And then the other big news about a movie that's set to release between those two movies is Spider-Man.
Yes.
There is CinemaCon going on right now, so a lot of the major studios are making announcements. I don't think Marvel is, but Sony is. So we got some more information. We got a title. It's Spider-Man New Day. So it'll be the first project for Spider-Man. Obviously, after the events of No Way Home, which was amazing. Tom Holland is back. New direction. He's going to be completely alone, as far as we know. But it's just nice to get confirmation. And obviously, with it's a weird dynamic having a studio like Sony that is also working with Marvel Studios that has this big machine rolling all the time. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it slots into the greater story, because Spider-Man's a power player, so they're going to want him to be involved somehow. So it'll be interesting to see what the story is. And
I've been thinking about that too, because I know the end of No Way Home was that the world forgets who Peter Parker is. But I know that, when we first meet Tom Holland's Spider-Man in Civil War, Tony already had surveillance on this guy and knew oh, there's this spider guy out there. Maybe I don't quite know who Peter Parker is, but he was, they were aware of kind of who he was in general. But now Tony's gone and S.H.I.E.L.D. is gone. So there's no big intelligence really out there to maybe keep an eye on. Who else should we be recruiting? So I think it will be interesting to are we pulling any new people into this, or how are the Young Avengers playing a role in this? Are we doing any recruiting, or are we just pulling in this cast of already pretty well-known enhanced individuals and supplementing them with the Thunderbolts and now the Fantastic Four and maybe some mutants that we're okay with now suddenly because we've gotten over that saga. Which, by the way, I guess a quick note on that, I wouldn't expect this to happen, and obviously, so far, it's not happening, but no Wolverine on here, no...
it's coming.
You think so?
Again, that's why I think the angst about the names that are on this list, it was very strategic. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get a confirmation on Hugh Jackman or Ryan Reynolds. There's a lot of different characters that haven't been confirmed that I would love it if they didn't, and they just kind of popped up. I think that's kind of been a missing element for maybe a year or two of Marvel, is they have started to reveal a lot more than they used to. There was a window of time where all of a sudden the things that they held back were brilliant, and we'll get into that with a couple movies later. But I don't know that you're gonna actually get confirmation. So be wink wink, nudge nudge. They'll say, I don't know what you're talking about. Marvel hasn't talked to me yet.
Okay, that's fair. Well, I'm with you in that. I would love to see them not do it. I mean, maybe Deadpool I'd be okay.
I can understand
Deadpool. But Wolverine, I feel like Hugh Jackman was so adamant about being done with him until Ryan Reynolds asked him to come back.
Till he's 90.
And now, yeah, right? Exactly.
Till he's 90.
And then he came back for Deadpool and Wolverine. But now I really hope that he's actually done. And I wouldn't hope, because especially with people are very, obviously very mixed feelings already about Robert Downey Jr. coming back and saying he's doing it for the money. And I'm like, I don't want that to be true either. I don't think it is. I think, again, like we've talked about, we gotta let them cook a little bit. So I would hope that he's not doing it for the money, and I would hope that people don't think that way about Hugh Jackman if he comes back too.
Yeah, but we will see.
We will see. So yeah, that was. I remember when you texted me, I was freaking out. I was like, I can't believe that they're doing this, and also like, what a way to slowly torture everyone who decided to sit down and watch that thing for 4 hours. Only Marvel could make people do that. I feel like.
Yeah, they still are relevant and powerful, and no matter how much complaining is online, they watched it. I laugh because they're complaining. Why are you doing this? Why are they doing this?
But they watched.
Why are you still watching?
Yep. So no one to be mad about. No one to be mad at but yourself.
Yep.
Kind of. Okay, so that's the most current news out of the universe, and we had to make sure we began with that. The last big event that has occurred for us since we last recorded was the seeing Captain America: Brave New World. We saw it once together. I saw it. I think I literally saw it the next day with a friend. That was unplanned. Came up last night.
Nice.
And then, which was nice because it was very fresh then. And then you have seen it 2 more times.
Yeah.
So. What do we think score out of 10?
I mean, I can't wait to get into this in our main topics.
Ooh, yes, okay.
It's still a very good movie. Mm-hmm. I'm always of the mind that if you, as a movie, can have a score of 6 or higher out of 10, if you're, it's kind of like grading, like 60 and above, like there were more good things than bad. If you're asking me to give it a solid number, I'd probably say 7. Kind of in that 7.5 range for me. There were a lot of great elements in it that reminded me more of Winter Soldier than, say, Civil War. I think Captain America: The First Avenger is in its own category because it's an origin story and it's a period piece. So there are obviously other movies in the MCU that compare to that style of movie. I think Winter Soldier was the first of its kind when it came out, and it really elevated the character. And then I think Civil War just kind of reinforced the importance of the character while being a very big kind of overarching movie for the universe and for a lot of the characters we'd met in the Avengers movies, especially Ultron. It was a good movie. I think, unfortunately, it's becoming more common that we're getting a lot of public opinion and agendas about movies before they come out. And I'm not going to like lean into this too heavily, but, Marvel is heavily inspired by comics. And the writers do a good job of dipping into comic book arcs and influence, right? So it's really alarming when you see people complaining about a decision that is made when it's literally something that has happened and is still happening in the source material that it's based off of, right? And putting aside whether someone wants to play a character for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, which is admirable in itself, they did a really great job of transitioning to a new Captain America, which again has happened many times in the comics. But putting that aside, I want to just give a shout out to Anthony Mackie for doing a great job in leading his own movie. We got a transition of sorts in Disney Plus in his series, but I think he took over the mantle really well. I thought he was authoritative. It's a different style, right? He brings his own experiences and knowledge to the role. And then, look, whether or not you like it, he's a more vulnerable Captain America. And we have a lot of characters in our universe that are just human beings. That is perfectly okay. There are characters that are just humans. They're not enhanced. They're not like godly. They just are humans, but they bring other abilities to the table. And obviously, this Cap has a different sort of suit with a different sort of ability skill set, which is really fun to see on screen. Since Anthony Mackie was introduced as Falcon, it's been very cool to kind of see the evolution of what they do with his skill set. And it really got brought home in this movie, some of the things that you see him do. I think, before I turn it back over to you and let you talk for a bit, I think the thing that suffers in this movie that kind of the comparison with Winter Soldier, I think the editing for me. There were some moments that you could have let breathe a bit more. There were some decisions of pacing that sort of like upset momentum that they had built, things like that. That's the big thing here. You can tell obviously there were some changes made. That happens in all movies. It happens in Marvel movies. Those are kind of the things that you're probably going to look back on and say, maybe we didn't think hard enough about this, or we thought too hard about that, or introduction of characters that I like too. New Falcon. Obviously, you had Harrison Ford. I'll let you talk a bit more about him. I thought it was a good movie, and I think it's going to age really well. I think that's a big thing for me. I enjoyed watching it again, and I think watching it again, I was able to like notice some more things that made me really happy. Some things that I missed that I was like, okay, I understand that choice better now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'll let you talk a bit more about what you felt, and
Definitely.
if you want to talk more about Harrison Ford.
Yeah, and I mean, I will be getting into, and you can too if you would like, but I'll be touching on spoilers for anyone watching who hasn't seen it.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too.
Dog apparently wants to talk about spoilers as well here. No, I would be in the same rating, or I'd maybe be like just below a 7, like a 6.8 maybe, or a 6.9. I don't think it was a bad movie. I think I think you're right that we get a lot of opinions about movies before they come out these days, and I think the big gripe that I've been hearing about this one was the fact that it was already revealed going in that Harrison Ford's character was the Red Hulk, and I've heard some people say that, look, if we actually didn't know that going in, and then just watched the movie as it is, and just like saw him like struggle to avoid transforming into Red Hulk, and then at the end eventually doing it, it might have been a little better. I don't know if I agree with that.
I do think it's a missed opportunity to see.
Yes, I agree. It could have been, yes, it is. I don't know if they felt like they really had to sell, like, hey, why would you come see this movie? Well, Red Hulk's in it. No, new Cap, I agree. I think you're right. Shout out to Anthony Mackie. He did a great job. It was really actually interesting to me to see him, like, he has a different style to Cap, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think definitely needs his own style. I think he was struggling too much beforehand with trying to be like Chris Evans as Captain America. It's like,
gritty.
No, yeah, it's your own thing. Do it however you want to do it, especially like you talked about the suit. The suit already opens up so many new opportunities, which that was the one thing that I kept screaming about, like, internally in the movie, was that I felt like he didn't use the Wakandan technology as much as he probably should have.
Yeah.
And then when he finally used it in the final battle, I was like, yes, you could have done this 8 other times. I know you don't want to spam it because that would get annoying.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But you have the technology. But that was cool. I agree. I loved seeing the new Falcon and even just their dynamic. But I think I made the comment to you that I was so worried that new Falcon was already going to die in this movie because I felt like they joked about it too many times. Like, joking about it once in passing is okay, but when you bring it up again in,
I think it was like 4 times.
Yeah.
It was repeated.
Or even just like the one time he did, like, right before, he basically got brought up right before his accident, and like you already knew going into that scene that like something is about to go down. This is like end of Act 2 coming into Act 3 type thing. Like, we're gonna see a pinnacle here. And so I was just like, guys, just let the movie flow. And like, but
yeah. And on that note, there was some humor that missed a little bit, and one of the ways they missed is by repeating something a couple more times like that. I think you're right about that.
Yeah, I did really like seeing more of Isaiah Bradley. I do think that was a very
He's
nice,
a great character.
great aspect. He was so emotional. He was such an emotional actor, and those scenes that he did were so beautiful. And I think the one I saw him get interviewed about, which was the one that got me a little bit as someone who's a very big empath, was the whole thing with his suit and about how he was like so worried that his suit was going to get wrecked as he's getting arrested.
It meant a lot to him.
Yeah, might never see the light of day again, but he's worried about his suit because it's the suit he got married to his wife. And I was like, and then when he gets it back at the end, I was really hoping for that. I was like, guys, I really hope he just gets his suit back, and he did, and I was so happy to see that. So great actor. I don't know if we'll see him again, but
I hope so. There's definitely room to see more of him.
I could see it both ways. I would love to see him again, but also I feel like he did a great job, and this would be a good cap to his career in the MCU, or there might be a good middle ground, because clearly we saw that Anthony Mackie's Captain America uses him to train, which I think I love that dynamic. So maybe we will just see that, we'll see him once in Doomsday as Mackie is in the gym and gets a call to come to DC or something like that, which even that would be fine. Just a little appearance by Isaiah, 1 or 2 quips. I would love to see that. But overall, I had on here to talk about where it belongs among the other Cap movies and projects, and maybe even in the MCU. I think it is, in my mind, still the lowest of the Cap movies.
Probably. I think it depends on your nostalgia for the first Avenger.
Yeah.
But I would say, I mean, third is probably the highest it goes right now. Just because, again, Winter Soldier is so good, and then Civil War is pretty beloved as well. So it's hard to top those two. And then, again, there's that versus First Avenger. As far as, I mean, I think it's a middle of the pack movie for sure.
I do think you're right. I think there's a lot of potential for it to age well, though.
Yeah.
This movie did, though, touch on definitely some interesting topics, especially in the world we currently live in. We've already discussed in the last episode that they had to alter the trailer once already because it mirrored real-life events a little too well.
Yeah.
But that was obviously totally by accident. And it's interesting. I did actually really enjoy seeing that dynamic with the President and Cap, of just how, like, right from the bat, they're like, we don't get along, but, like, can we maybe just to, like, for the greater good? Can we at least talk about this? So that was good. Harrison Ford, obviously brilliant president. Like, that was a great recasting. I'm glad he agreed because holy cow.
Yeah, I think he really he shined in moments where he had to really show the journey of that character. I mean, Ross has had an interesting trajectory in this universe. Humble beginnings and Incredible Hulk, that I am troubled to always hear that a lot of people haven't watched that movie and just don't know that, like, that's where he gets to start. I do wonder if that's one of those elements that would have made it a better movie. Obviously, we can't change the fact, sadly, he passed away. Yeah. But, like, I think it would have been very cool to see that kind of full circle moment of seeing him all the way from Incredible Hulk and then being in this movie. William Hurt played him very, very well, and with a lot of depth, I would say too. I would agree. Given how he's Clash of the Avengers in this universe, so that would have been fun. But I think Harrison Ford did an admirable job.
Yeah, and we did see some of that with the villain, obviously, because we did still that villain did come full circle from. Well, we saw him really pretty much only in the Incredible Hulk, and then now. But yeah, Ross has more. You're right, appearances, even in like the Black Widow movie. It is interesting. I haven't heard too many people complain about the fact that, because if you didn't watch the Incredible Hulk, you probably were a little lost as to like who this guy is. And usually that's, like, we've talked about that. People love to complain about that with MCU movies. Like, oh, why do I have to watch 30 movies to watch this new one that just came out? This one you didn't need to watch 30 necessarily, but it probably was pretty crucial to watch The Incredible Hulk. Otherwise, you would have been maybe a little lost. But haven't heard that complaint, which I'm glad. But I have heard the classic. Again, we're not. This is not a new argument. The classic, they're finally addressing the big alien statue in the ocean, but now some people are like, well, it's too late. This came up 12 MCU projects ago.
Patience, I know, like, guys,
people. Come on.
It is and so frustrating and gets so tiring.
Even though it did take a while, I thought they portrayed it exactly like we would if that was an actual thing. Like, we would immediately start fighting over the resources and almost start a war over this new material that we've discovered. That's very much the world we live in.
I have literally no notes on how that played out. That's exactly how it played out. And somebody's going to just be aggressive and say, you know what, screw everybody else, I'm going for it. So the fact that they were actively working on a treaty as we enter this movie, because, all these countries have already kind of gained some access to it, I was like, yep, that sounds about right. Yep.
Was interesting to get that conversation about starting the Avengers up again. I mean, that had to happen at some point.
Inevitable, right?
Yeah, had to happen at some point. Wasn't sure where it would happen, but I suppose it does make sense in the Captain America movie, because that is probably a good assumption that Cap will be leading the new Avengers, most likely. The only one who really could, besides, would maybe be Thor, but again, we have no idea where he's at right now or how he's even going to come back into this saga, because he again kind of gave up that life too at the end of Thor: Love and Thunder and is just taking care of Love, or whatever her name was. Overall, not a bad film. Obviously not Marvel's best work, but I did really love seeing another Anthony Mackie project. I do love watching him. I do think he's a great new Cap.
And there were still surprises for sure. I thought the story wasn't super predictable. No. I was fascinated to see, like, how are you going to explain this character we haven't seen? How are you going to explain, he's obviously president, but, like, it means, he probably had to sacrifice some things and do some nefarious things along the way. Well, yes, he did. We got all those answers. Yep. So I thought a lot of that was well explained, and is this, again, it comes down to execution, a little bit of editing. Yeah. I don't think anybody in the cast had a letdown in performance at all. Oh, no. Sometimes that's something that I worry about, is like, is somebody fully committed to the bit? Everybody brought it. That was not an issue here. So definitely. And I think that, is similar to how kind of the last trilogy went with Captain America. If he does get another movie, I fully expect it to be a huge jump, because that's what happened with Chris Evans. It was like a great start. He was in the Avengers, but Winter Soldier really put him on the map. That movie still, I mean, we talked about it in a previous episode. A lot of people rank that one movie number one.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. End of story.
So that says a lot.
That is what is going on. Latest updates in the MCU. And now we're going to go a little further back, possibly all the way back to the very first project. We're going to give our thoughts on which Marvel movies are the most mature.
So I thought a lot about this, and also it's one of those things too where you talk about what does mature mean, and I think you can tag a lot of different ways. I do understand in general, like, you're looking for that content that really, we're straying away from that, PG-13 rating. We're straying away from just, like, humor. We're getting into the topics that make people uncomfortable, things that may be upsetting, things of that nature. And so when you bring that up, the funny thing about asking that question is that I think actually they've had more maturity in a lot of their content since Endgame. The funny thing, Endgame itself like touched on some of those themes too. You know, look at Thor's journey. He's clearly just like a shattered man, right? Just trying to rebuild himself, and they're all going through different stages of depression after losing for really the first time, like just a total failure. But yeah, I mean, I do have some movies that I listed here, but I want to highlight after Endgame because they actually had a stretch that I thought was super interesting. Putting aside how much you like the movies, I look at Phase 4, we had in a row Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, and Spider-Man 3. And it's like, why do you pick those ones? Well, Black Widow, I mean, you want to talk about a mature theme? Look at the Black Widow program, you know? Kidnapping young girls, indoctrinating them. Sure, you know, I don't think they can, like, show it, but they implied, you know, they probably were tortured. We know that they were made to be sterile. They were experimented on. You know, mind control, these kinds of things, right? That's some pretty heavy stuff. You know, there's a lot of trauma. I think you look at all those projects, there's trauma built into all of those. I look at Shang-Chi, and I think what made that movie really good is that family trauma can really speak to everybody. The premise of that movie, the whole reason that Shang-Chi is running and hiding from who he really is because he has a father who cannot process trauma and has passed it on to his children. I mean, he blames his kids for his wife's death, and that was wild. That whole sequence for me, like, you're talking about, you know, years and years by, and that's what he takes from that whole situation, and it's really rough. You know, he obviously ran away, and that was one of those, like, it's a really, really good movie, but man, this is uncomfortable to really think about when you, like, break that situation down.
Oh, yeah.
You know? I thought Eternals did a really good job with kind of, like, the trauma of their shared experience of being involved in a civilization's, not a civilization, a planet's sort of growth and development over time, and not being able to intervene. Like, there was a lot of really good scenes. They were kind of in prehistoric, I want to say Aztec, I'm probably going to get that wrong. But they were witnessing genocide, and they kind of just couldn't get involved. And they were arguing about this, like, the ethics of it. Like, they were getting into ethics in this movie. And then you see it again when the atomic bomb goes off. And Fastos was devastated that his ability to deliver technology to them had led to wiping out a large population of people off the Earth. You know, those are the kind of topics that, you know, it makes people uncomfortable to think about, you know?
But that is actually, wow, now that I think about it, that is probably one of my favorites, especially, like, which is ironic because a lot of people hate on that movie so much. We've talked about that a lot.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right, because they were expressly told, like, hey, this is why we're here. We're here to do X, Y, and Z and nothing outside of that. But, like, why? But why?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, but this is wrong. Like, we should be able to say something. And I think even, like,
they were being used, right? We understand that now, but they obviously weren't allowed to sort of dispute that. They just kind of had to deal with it.
And we've seen, I think, a lot of instances in the past few years, especially being based in Minneapolis, where Kobe and I are, where, you know, a superior person in a rank is doing something that they really shouldn't be doing, and the people underneath them are kind of just sitting there watching and not interfering, when in reality they probably should be. And topics, and then conversations like that happen, and people start to think about, you know, why do we not say anything, or why don't we speak up more? So, yeah, you're right. Now that I think about that, that is oh man, now I want to watch Eternals again.
Yeah, no, I really think, I hope that, you know, we're not yet a decade in, but I really think, and I hope we get another one, but I think a lot of people are going to look at that differently, hopefully, you know, down the line. And then dipping into Spider-Man, I said Spider-Man 3, but honestly, Spider-Man, like, we know the story. Like, he has to deal with loss all the time. Yeah. His moments of happiness are fleeting. I think in this trilogy specifically, too, like, he's already had... The funny thing about looking at his trilogy now is that we thought he had his Uncle Ben moment. He had to do it again. Dude. So he did that twice. He had to deal with, you know, betrayal of a mentor in the second movie. He had to deal with the death of a mentor. He had to deal, like... And this is just this trilogy. Like, he's a tragic character, and that's one of the things that I think, you know, he has to rise above it and still do the right thing, and he continues to. And a lot of time, you see a lot of people when something that happens to that, they turn, and I think that's what separates him from a lot of other characters, good or bad, is that more than a lot of characters in the MCU in Marvel, he deals with a lot of tragedy and just has to get up and continue again and again and then I didn't have it on my list, but, like, Iron Man, like. a very complicated, flawed individual that has, for the most part, gotten past a lot of those demons in the interpretation that we saw of him. But I mean, come on, you know, the alcoholic, the self-destructive tendencies, he's a very mature character that I think Robert Downey Jr. did a really good job with the levity of it. So like you sort of get distracted by that a lot, but like when you really look at him, like I think I joked about this with you at one point, just looking at all the Spider-Man villains that we've had to deal with, they all have had ties to Iron Man.
Yes.
Almost all of the Avengers villains have had ties to Iron Man. Like the influence that he's had obviously is huge, and a lot of that is because of his self-destructive tendencies. And heroic ones obviously are helpful, but he's had a
and they do, both the writers and then him himself portraying it, do such a good job of, you know, again, he is still very much the swagger boy, though, when he's in front of people, but then he does still have those moments, like talking to Nick Fury about, yo, hey, this is actually all my fault, and I realize that, and I, like, don't sleep at night because of it, and then, like, I'm actually a mess, but then he, like, walks outside, and he's like, hey, guys, I'm the best, it's all fine. So, you know, that's also a very mature theme of, like, a lot of us probably are putting on faces, like, more often than we like to admit, and acting like it's okay, and then we come home to our private times, or we speak with those closest to us, and it's like, it's actually not okay at all, and I don't know what to do about it, or, like, I have this crazy idea that might make it better, but it's pretty crazy, like building Ultron or, you know, whatever it ends up being. So I was definitely going to mention Iron Man 1. You're right, his character, you know, you could maybe say all the movies with his character, but even just the first one, you know, is something he does something we would all love to see if we were in his position, and something we shout at people in real life in his position when he's like, hey, I see that what my company's doing is wrong, and even though, you know, this is literally the main thing that my company does that makes me a shit ton of money, I'm shutting it down, and we're not going to do it anymore. Yep. And the losing the money, you know, the stock dipping tomorrow makes no difference to me. That's something we would never see today, unfortunately, or like, I shouldn't say never, because there's always a little hope. I try to think about that. But we would never see that today. So just to like be in that position, to be like, I don't give a fuck if I lose all this money, or, you know, whatever, it'll be fine. We just can't keep doing this shit because it's wrong. So that's a great one. And to open the franchise with that too is, you know, sets them on a great course.
Yeah, right. It really sets the tone. And I mean, again, they were in their infancy, so they didn't know how big this was going to get. I'm sure they hoped. But you start with a character like that, you know, like, that's crazy, you know, ambitious. And then, again, the person they started off with, what he's been through in his life, he's been open about it. So it's almost like they took a double risk there. A character that's not like this beloved A-list character back then, and then an actor who's sort of like building himself back up, rebuilding his reputation, and, you know, it has worked on all levels for them. Obviously, look at it now. So
I do agree, though, that your echo of, you know, post Endgame, I think we have seen, I feel like it was quite a notable turn towards more mature topics or issues or content or whatever you want to call it. I think particularly in the TV projects, which again, some people have liked and some people haven't.
I definitely, you've brought it up, and I think that's another reason why there's been sort of like this, there's been, I don't know if you call it irritation or anger or but like, we're trying to make things a bit more realistic and touch on things a bit more, and people are sort of just like, no, we don't need this, or that you didn't need to jump into that, or.
Well, and I like to think that partly too what's going on over at Disney, I'm sure some people have, you know, obviously there are going to be people like that everywhere where they just want the money or whatever, but I like to think there are some people over at Disney going, hey, look, we should talk about these things because, like, this is the world we live in now, and we shouldn't be quiet. Like, we're so big, we could, like, use our influence to talk about these things. And I think that's why people get irritated, because it goes back to, like, I know people who are, you know, love watching football as a, you know, slightly different example, but then they're like, why do we see players kneeling during the national anthem or whatever? Like, I turn on football to escape things like that. I don't want to see that. And it's like, okay, but again, these people have influence. They know that they are on a stage where people are watching them, and they think that enough is enough. So I think they think it's time to talk about these things. So I see it from both ways, but I'm very much on the side of, hey, this is life and we should talk about it, and like keeping quiet or avoiding it isn't really a strategy anymore, like, or super viable. I agree we all need our breaks, and we can't like 24/7 be talking about politics, nor would I want us to. But, you know, if we want to see change, we do need to talk more. So,
absolutely,
or leave these messages more. So it is interesting that people, because I'm sure a lot of people that are complaining about this do support those issues at the end of the day, but apparently just don't want to see them in the media necessarily. So.
I do also want to touch on, so you talk about mature themes. I think one of the biggest things that can touch everyone is grief. So there's that. The other thing that I think people, what do people love even more than human connections? Animals.
Yes.
Everybody can relate to that. Some people love animals more than love people, frankly.
Oh, yeah.
So I just want to highlight Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. To this day, I'm still not sure how they pulled it off, to be honest. I don't think it's an easy pill to swallow when you have somebody like Chadwick Boseman pass away in the way that he did, and kind of like the shock that it was to everybody. And then to say we have to somehow make a movie, and I'm sure that was like just a tough exercise every day. Everybody showing up and going through that production, but it's the movie that it is the movie that I probably cried at the most, to be quite honest.
Oh, yeah.
They start you off right away and hit you in the gut and get you spilling tears. Then they hit you again immediately after that, and then they kind of just keep on jabbing you throughout the movie, as frankly the whole main cast is working through grief. You see it in Shuri, you see it in Okoye, you see it in everybody, and everybody's dealing with different ways, and I love the way they did that. And if I would say one thing about watching those two movies back to back, it really drives home human connection and how important it is, and what grief does to all of us. So there's shades of grief in a lot of the movies in the MCU, but I think just what they did in those two movies is amazing. And then Guardians of the Galaxy as a trilogy is fantastic, but when you talk about that third movie, that was a rough watch. I can watch it again. It is tough sometimes, though, because of the things that you see. The High Revolutionary is one of those characters that you wish you could get your hands around his neck.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've talked about this before. I've still only seen it the one time. I still haven't watched it again.
It's tough.
I'm not against it, but again, I really got to be in the space. It's just, again, a weird thing to say. But the execution of the torture and that theme of animal cruelty was done so well, like too well to me. That's why I'm like, oh wow. But again, it needed to be told. Again, it's kind of like the Black Widow situation.
It wasn't an unnecessary story. So for people saying it went too far, this is a backstory of a character that's beloved and what he went through, and it was absolutely necessary. And I think they did a good job with it, given the circumstances. But it was tough to watch.
And I've loved all the giving more to all the characters really, but especially I've loved seeing them give more depth to the Guardians, because again, I feel like when they showed up too in their first movie, they were more like a comic relief, and then they were kind of just off doing. They were never on Earth, so it was kind of like they were kind of an afterthought. But it's like, no, they're still around. And then even when they showed up, it's like, okay, but like you guys are like the B team, and like the Avengers are the A team, and like you guys are here to like support. It's like, no, they're important and they matter and they have their own stuff going on, and it's important to tell those stories. So it was definitely needed. But
and shout out to Bradley Cooper, man.
Oh
Bradley Cooper is amazing.
Yes.
He made us all sob over a raccoon. Like, but legit sob over a raccoon.
And that was post Endgame too, and that's crazy. But even during Endgame, I don't know if I've talked about this on the podcast. Maybe I have briefly, but like I know someone who like was watching Endgame with me and like saw the after the blip and the 5 years later, and they saw how everyone was still grieving so badly, and they're like, I don't get it. What's the big deal? Like, yes, they lost everyone, of course, but like it's been 5 years. Like that should make a difference. I'm like, 5 years is not that long of a time when you literally lost. Like not even just you, like, but the world has lost everyone. So it's I feel like if it was just you who lost half the people in your life,
it's a mass trauma.
Yes, exactly. If it's confined to just you, you can get over it. I feel like easier because you can just go out in the world and everyone else is still happy, and happiness can be contagious. But everyone was hurting.
Yeah, I don't think
no one was happy about losing half the world. Well, I guess there were some people, which led to some of those sects that then grew after the people came back. But for the most part,
there were some groups that probably took advantage. But
but
the
they weren't necessarily
immediate
happy.
feeling of like, how do we move on from this? And things would grind to a halt, at least at first, and then of course they pick up the pieces and move on. But like, so it's clear how everybody was affected by that. I mean,
yes. So post Endgame, yes, I think we're seeing a lot of maturity, and I hope we'll continue to see it. I'll be very curious with these upcoming projects. But even before that, it definitely had its moments. We've talked about the first Iron Man. I think you could definitely talk about. What is that? That would be Winter Soldier. I mean, we've talked about Winter Soldier to death, but I will talk about it more. I think you can definitely talk about that.
You just talk about Bucky.
Yeah, Bucky. True.
What he's had to go through.
Yes, but not only what he's had to go through, but how Steve has had to handle that as essentially the leader, or one of maybe the co-leaders, if you want to throw Iron Man there as well, of the Avengers, who are, again, supposed to be doing good, and then Bucky's out here causing a lot of bad, and they need to kind of put a stop to that. But it's like, hey, but this is my best friend. I know this isn't him, and I know that he would never do this if he was in his right mind, but I'm supposed to stop him. So how do I approach this? How do I make sure no one gets hurt? How do I stop one from killing the other, basically?
Yeah, that's why I think Civil War, the way they orchestrated that was perfect.
Yes, I would agree. So that's one. I would maybe throw a little attention at the first Thor, but not as much as the other movies. But definitely think that was
it's more family drama for sure.
Yeah, I would say, and even just again, I think
legacy.
Yeah, and even just up until then, Thor being told his entire life up to that point that you're a god and you're gonna wield this hammer.
Do it.
You're gonna wield this hammer and you're gonna protect all the 7 realms and you're gonna be a boss. And then suddenly one day being told not only are you not ready, but we're gonna take all that back from you in the span of a day, and him just having to learn who he is without his powers. I know a lot of people aren't super in love with the first Thor movie. I like it, I think, more than most people. It's still not obviously one of the best projects, but I think I like it more than. I
think that's the job, though.
Yes, exactly.
Especially with look at Loki. Loki's been struggling out his whole existence because he grew up in a family where you're always gonna be second best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you're talking about royal families and succession and things like that, it generally goes to the firstborn, right?
Mm.
So you growing up, you're knowing that you're probably not going to get this chance that you probably are hoping for at some point, but it's not going to happen. And then, suspecting you're different, but not be able to confirm it. But it's in any situation, as you get older, you notice more things, you ask more questions, and he figures out pretty quickly in that movie that I am different. And then he has to make a choice about what his father tells him.
Mm.
Is he telling the truth? Did he mean it? Was there ulterior motives? There was ulterior motives, but I think Odin was being honest.
Yes.
But it doesn't still take away from that feeling of betrayal. So then the rest of the movie is him coming to terms with that and deciding how he wants to address it. And it really affects his arc for at least the rest of that trilogy and for a little while after that too. You can, two things can be true. I always believe this. You can have affection for people, but still feel anger, abandonment, betrayal, and who ultimately knows how things would have gone if you say with the Frost Giants.
Mm-hmm.
It would seem that he would have been cast aside and probably left for dead. We'll never know for sure, but he was given a chance, and he has to still grapple with that as because as we know now, Odin was pretty manipulative. He was doing that age-old, we're going to use Dumbledore's reference here, for the greater good. He's protecting a realm, he's protecting the universe, he's thinking about legacy, he's thinking about what's best for the future, for the family, and was bringing in a Frost Giant to be a surrogate son the best idea? Maybe not, but I guess it could have gone worse. It also could have gone better. But for better or worse, he made that choice, and it's kind of Loki's had to deal with it. But I really like you bringing up that movie because I don't think it's talked about enough.
No, and Loki in general too. You could talk about it in a couple of different ways. I think, in general, the Loki's TV show, super mature, and also just a really great project. Anyone hasn't watched it yet, I've really come to love Loki so much with every new project that we've seen him in. So super, that series, 2 seasons, and we're getting more, yes, maybe?
He's returning for Doomsday.
He's returning for Doomsday, that's right, so we'll see.
Just watch the series. Don't do any spoilers for that. It's worth a watch.
Watch the series, both seasons, it's great. And then even his character, I wouldn't call Ragnarok mature necessarily. There definitely is more family trauma, like you've talked about, in there. But as a whole, wouldn't necessarily call it mature. But there is one of my favorite scenes, and probably favorite mature scenes, just breaks my heart every time. When Thor and Loki are in the elevator, getting ready to leave the castle and break out, and Loki's like, maybe I should just stick around here. And Thor says, yeah, that's probably a good idea. You'd fit in well with all these scumbags. And Loki says, oh, that's what you think of me? And Thor has to tell him that, oh yeah, no, I thought the world of you. I thought we were going to fight side by side forever till the end of time, but, that didn't work out, and you're you and I'm me, so we should probably just separate. It's probably for the best. And you just see that look in Loki's face of, well, yeah, we haven't liked each other ever, but, no, I don't want to, you can see that that's not actually what he wants to do, and it just breaks my heart every time. I would have loved to see more of them fight alongside each other, because we really only I mean, I guess we kind of see that in...
you see that in each movie at least once.
A little bit.
But it would have been nice to see more of it, for sure.
Yeah, and even, like, you only really see it in the first Thor as, like, oh, here they're, like, for sure, allies, or maybe, Loki's kind of, but they're more so allies there, where the rest of the time it's just like, oh, we're just fighting for a common goal, but we don't like each other at the end of the day. So I would have loved to see more collaboration. I feel like they were teasing us with it, and then Infinity War happened, because he was on the ship, and then Infinity War happened. Man, they're so good at having those moments, like you talked about with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, how we thought we were safe because we're like, Uncle Ben's already gone, so we're not going to have that moment. They really made us feel comfortable there, and I don't know who the fuck was in that meeting that was like, it would be great for this trilogy if we open with him dead, and then later, whoever would said that, fuck you.
Seriously.
It was good for development, and it made for a great scene then with all three Spider-Man obviously over the shared trauma. But come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, that was not fun.
No,
it was not fun.
So
I do want to mention in terms of topics here, the topic of purpose. And I want to highlight Doctor Strange for that one in terms of the whole first act is him dealing with the trauma of his lost purpose and fighting desperately to get that back, right? It's this amazing surgeon, best in the world, blah, 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 blah. Accidents happen. But it had to happen to him, and it had to happen to, the one thing he couldn't lose. The whole rest of that first act is him just desperately trying to find a way. And he builds everything, right? All his resources, his money, everything, his relationships. I think that's even more important. He absolutely just... he cuts all of those loose in pursuit of the one thing that he cares about the most, which, it's horrifying and depressing how you just see him just decide that none of that is important because he can't be a surgeon anymore. So I really like his journey in the movie when it comes to the Ancient One really reinvigorating him with purpose and showing him that there are other ways to make an impact in life, and I think that sets him up really well for Infinity War, frankly.
Oh yeah,
because and he still fights against it every day. He's still very arrogant, very confident, but he's definitely a changed person because of all of that experience. Because he gets to the lowest that you can probably go.
Yes.
When you look at where he was in the beginning of that movie. So. Yeah, I thought it would be good. I mean, because it's sort of a dark start in that movie.
Right.
When he ends up at Kamar-Taj, he has nowhere else to go. Like, he's literally cut everything off. He's sold everything away. He left with the last of his money, so that was his final destination. If that hadn't worked out for him, he probably would have just ended up being a beggar on the side of the road somewhere. So.
Right. Which, that's interesting, because that, for some reason, makes me think of... I feel like that story is very similar to, again, what I was just talking about in the first Thor of, again, they've spent their whole lives being told this one thing.
Yes.
But the difference, I think, that you hit on brilliantly was the fact that Strange was so desperate, and he literally tried everything, whereas, like, it's not that Thor didn't try everything, but he literally just, like, he finds out where his hammer is, he goes to it, tries to lift it up, he can't, and he's like, okay, that's basically it, I'm done.
I'm out.
Exactly. I've been banished, I can't go back home, I can't lift the hammer, I'm done, that's it. Only gets his powers back because he does eventually, sacrifice himself. Yeah. But it's literally just to save, the people of Earth that he's then become friends with.
I need to watch that movie again.
But Strange does so much. He's calling all these surgeons that he's known. He's calling in all these favors. He's blowing all this money, taking all these loans. Spends his last dime to go to Kamar-Taj. Like, literally does that portrayal, I feel like, is much better of that struggle and that journey, and does speak to character, I think, a lot for Stephen Strange. And then you're right. Then there's the whole journey of the discovery of a new purpose. And honestly, I love that scene, too, in that first movie, which is after... I believe that is after we lose the Ancient One. I could be wrong, but I know it's right after Strange uses the Eye of Agamotto for the first time, which... boy, is that here too? Yeah, it's here too. But after he uses it for the first time, and then the Wong and I can't remember the other guy, who I think we've kind of just forgotten about at this point. But the other two sorcerers are like, questioning, how'd you do that? How did you do that? And Strange is basically like, yeah, whatever, I can do all these great things, that's cool, I still can't use my hands. And they're like, well, that's not what we're about.
That's not what we're
about. And Strange literally has I love the line. He just goes, when are you going to start telling me what we are? And then that's when they get into, all right, here's how we, Avengers protect the physical Earth. We protect, the spiritual, or, all that stuff. And I just love that line where you can tell he's just so fed up. He's like, yes, I've kind of discovered a new purpose, but also I haven't, because I still don't know how this plays into anything. And my hands are still shaking at the end of the day. I can make these cool things in the air and summon weapons and all that cool, but why? So I do love that scene. I think, his journey, is a little more in depth, or I don't know, it's portrayed better. I think the stories are similar, which a lot of people talk about. There's only 7 stories or whatever you can make movies out of. I don't know if I fully subscribe to that.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of overlap, and now I'm thinking about comparing those 2 movies, but thinking about how it's different. Yeah. And again, I think you hit the nail on the head with how desperate Strange becomes. So
yeah, and as we get to the sort of the end of this topic here, I would I think one thing that I would leave people with is that I think people need to embrace more of this and really appreciate and lean into it. We're so far into these story arcs at this point that so much of this matters in what's going on and how they proceed. Endgame doesn't happen if you don't have the trauma of what happened in Infinity War, right? Iron Man doesn't get to where he is if he doesn't have all these failures in his life and has to rebound from them. And we could go down the list again and again and again, but there's a reason why these things matter so much, and I think we need to appreciate the writing and the execution of some of these things. I think we've touched on a lot of really good topics.
Yes. And
I would mostly say that they are all relevant to the stories that they're trying to tell. So I urge people to. They are comic book movies, but don't treat them as only comic book movies, because, again, we mention this all the time. The people who wrote these stories were taking a lot of influence from things that were going on in those times. When you talk about, sexism, racism, political activity, all those kinds of things, they're all looped into these stories for a reason. And then we make it very personal with the different characters. And so there's a reason why that we gravitate to these stories, and there's a reason why we react emotionally to these stories, and why we bind ourselves to some of these characters. There's a lot of relatable things that happen here. No, we're not super soldiers, and no, we're not saving the world, but I think they do a great job with a lot of these elements, and I do want them to get to more of these subjects. I think it is really important, and I don't think that these projects should be immediately panned and just destroyed when the hints of these things are presented, as I think we've seen more recently with some of the movies, with some of the shows, some of that stuff. There's lots of reasons why that can happen, but I think that some of the reasons are not great.
I agree, and I think I understand it. The more that we talk about it, the more I think about it. I do understand the initial reaction, because, at the end of the day, these are uncomfortable things to talk about. So yes, not all of us are gonna see that for the first time and go, oh my gosh, be like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme when he's on the couch, you're not gonna be excited. I get that, but I think that's why we need to talk about it more, so that isn't our initial reaction. So that when we see these in life, we can say, hey man, we can intervene when we see something where we should intervene, instead of just going, that seems wrong, but I'm not gonna do anything about it. And that's just more cause to keep bringing up these topics. Maybe not necessarily in every project, no, but I would like to see it more than not. In some aspect, or in one aspect or another, there's something good in all of these movies, which does lead us into the... that wasn't a great transition. That was not a great...
Well, it wasn't, but it also was kind of on the nose at the same time. That's hilarious.
We didn't mention, though, we do have kind of a second part to the main content of this episode, which is a topic that Kobe has wanted to talk about since we started this podcast, and I love this idea of just the central idea that at the end of the day, all MCU movies are good, which a lot of people would definitely disagree, but but again, let him cook, let's hear him out. No.
Where's my apron? I need a pot.
I don't disagree at all, but I'm going to let you kind of lead this a little bit, and I would like to definitely jump in, because I'm sure I will have some thoughts as you go, but I think you've been thinking about this for a lot, so I'm sure you have things you definitely at least want to make sure get said.
So stay with me now, okay? Okay, I'm looking directly at you when I say this, okay? And I will not be told otherwise. Every Marvel Cinematic Universe movie is good. Okay? Good. You hear the word that I'm saying? Good. Okay? Good does not mean that it is top 10, that it is the best box office draw ever. They are all good and they all contribute. There's not a movie on this list of movies that we've had that doesn't add something to the universe. There's not a movie that doesn't have something important to say. Not all movies have to be amazing. And again, I say again, two things can be true at once. It's just something that I feel like bears repeating all the time. And this is something that happens. It's not just, it's in the entertainment in general, and then in sports I see it all the time. Either somebody is amazing and like elite and just this like superstar, or they suck and they can't do or in movies it's either it's really, really terrible or really, really great. There's no in between. There is so much in between here. And I think, again, I think I mentioned this in the previous one. I think one of the terrible things about Endgame is that since Endgame, this heightened expectation of like movies need to be up here in this like upper echelon, this percentage that is really hard to reach for every movie, and it shouldn't be expected either. Most movies kind of settle in this area. And I'm not just talking about Marvel movies in general. Like, sometimes you go to a movie and you walk out and you're like, it was good. I'm glad I went. I'm probably not going to go again. Didn't hate it. Does that make it a bad movie? No. And I think a big part of this debate too is movies are subjective, right?
Yes.
And people are allowed to not like a certain character or a certain movie, certain choices. I'm just saying objectively, when you look at the full list, and we don't have that list in front of us from Screen Rant, but maybe we take like the bottom 5, and I still say that they are good movies. I look at, sometimes movies are a prisoner of the circumstances. I look at a movie like Ant-Man 3, and unfortunately with Ant-Man 3, they were trying to do a lot of different things there. They had a villain named Kang that was played by an actor that was going through some pretty terrible stuff in the real life. Ant-Man has historically been a humor-filled franchise, so taking that pivot and taking a character like Kang and elevating, the Ant-Man to that challenge was that was lofty. There's just a lot of things there that probably didn't mix the best, but I don't think that it made it a bad movie. There's a lot of great things about it. We get to see the expansion of his power set. We get to see those relationships, and frankly, I always argue with Marvel is that the relationships and what happens there with these relationships are the most important thing. I just saw you scroll by what's considered the worst movie based on this list, and I kind of laugh about that because, like, remember back in Phase 1, we started off strong with Iron Man.
Yep.
We had Incredible Hulk, which again a lot of people haven't seen, and we had Iron Man 2, and everybody lost their minds a little bit. The funny thing about Iron Man 2 is that since Iron Man 2, how many more movies have we had where we introduce new characters, where we have team-ups? It is like become a standard now. When you go back and watch Iron Man 2, do you really think this is a bottom 5 movie, period, in this universe? I don't think, what I mean?
No,
like,
I think
when we made our own rankings, our impression of that movie was definitely not in that range. I think we both probably had it a second-tier movie.
I think more people would. Is Iron Man 2 is the very last, according to the Screen Rant article, and we talked about that, I think, in the last episode, and I think we would argue that a lot of people wouldn't have it dead last, but probably towards the bottom for sure. But I agree, and also, like, that's when we got Black Widow, and that's when...
I think people are turned off by the idea that, oh my god, you're going to shove these other characters in this movie. It's like, they do that all the time now, and people just shrug. I think she was introduced in a very smart way, and a part of an organization that was trying to recruit the main character, and based on what he was going through, she was watching him, she was surveilling him, right? We got our former introduction to Nick Fury in that movie. The plot in that movie was pretty cut and dry. He's struggling, and he needs to solve 2 problems at once, which he did, and the solving of those 2 problems allowed him to face off against the villain in the final act of the movie. Why was everybody so up in arms about? I laughed so much about that one.
I'm just looking at the bottom 5 since you made that as an example. So it was Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World, Quantumania. I think we get 2 Ant-Mans in here. The Incredible Hulk, although they have the Incredible Hulk 2008. I didn't realize that was on there. I don't know if we...
One thing, so I'll touch on Thor 2 again, and I'll say multiple things that can't be denied. Chris Hemsworth is Thor. He owns that character, right? Natalie Portman, their chemistry in those movies are fantastic.
Yes.
Okay. Anthony Hopkins is Odin. Fantastic.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Loki, Tom Hiddleston's Loki, fantastic. Okay, where I think a lot of people sour on that movie is the villain, and sort of like this sort of convoluted decision to have this villain. They just don't. I don't think they really resonated with audiences, and then having to find some link between what's going on and events on Earth. Still, in my mind, a really good movie, yes, in the sense of how it continues Thor's journey, continues the discontent that Loki has in I think, a meaningful way. It followed the events of the Avengers. So, again, they're all sort of like recovering from that. They're recovering as a family. And then I think it furthers everybody's arcs in a really, really good way, too. And in such a way that when we get to Ultron, it makes sense where everybody is.
Yes.
And then, I'm sorry, again, I think everybody's proud of Ultron is that they wanted this great follow-up to the Avengers. I think a lot of the problem with movies that people don't like in the MCU is that it's because of expectations. Expectations, being a prisoner, those comparisons, it really, people always want to say, well, look at this, and then this one's not really up there, so then it's like, that doesn't make it bad, though.
No, you know? Yeah. Well, it is funny, because, Ultron is also pretty low on this list. Ultron would be the 6th worst, I guess, technically. I don't know. I think Ultron more than most people, but also like a lot of people, even the people who hate Ultron, I think regularly say Ultron was like one of the best villains that we got in the MCU. So like, how can you be mad about? Yes, we lost him in the end, and like, could they have done more with him? Sure, we did get him for a movie. He was a great villain. And that might have been a little ahead of its time too, like the idea of having an AI be a villain. But like, let's talk about Mission Impossible for a second.
It's going to be one of the epic finishes.
Yeah, one of the most epic finishes we will probably see in our modern cinema history. The enemy is AI. That's literally, and its first part has been phenomenal. So excited for part 2.
What was those other movies, by the way, that before?
So it was Incredible Hulk 2008, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp.
And you already know what I say about Incredible Hulk, and then Ant-Man again. Ant-Man. One thing I will say about the trilogies is that they all kind of have a tone that they stay consistent with. I don't know that anybody ever really appreciated Ant-Man's tone. Like, I think a lot of people love Paul Rudd and they kind of love the character, but like the tone of his movies, it just, the tone versus the stakes that they deal with maybe isn't always balanced, but like it's consistent. And I think again, if it's consistent, it's hard to get mad. I think Captain Marvel and Ant-Man suffered from the same problem. They were 2 movies that were between Infinity War and Endgame, and again, expectations, comparisons. Can we also just mention impatience? People wanted to get to Endgame and like figure out how they were gonna overcome what had just happened, and they're like, "Oh, Captain Marvel, Ant-Man and the Wasp, like, what are we doing here?" And I think I absolutely think that's part of the discussion. I will also say I am wearing a Captain Marvel shirt. If you want to look right here, I love the character. I love the movie. I thought it was one of the better origins. It's really hard to do a movie like that when you have already a really wide breadth of material. It's like making things fit properly, which I did an excellent job of. And I might have mentioned this before, but one of the big problems with people's view of Captain Marvel in the franchise is Brie Larson discourse, which will always irritate me because they didn't give her a chance before the movie came out. It was kind of insane how that all went. But again, when you look at the movie, you look at the story, you look at the different characters, the stakes involved, and how it ties into the big movie that everybody's waiting for, I think they did an exceptional job. I think one thing with the character of Captain Marvel that would have been easy to do going in Endgame is have Captain Marvel solve all of their problems. That's why I really appreciate what they did with Captain Marvel being part of the solution, but not being the solution. Comes in and helps in the beginning of the movie, comes in with the assist at the end of the movie, but does not take over. You know, she has her part to play, but the history with these characters and Thanos is well documented, and for the most part, they're the ones that like end up being the solution. You know, the final solution, and she has a part to play, which is really important too. So,
I thought they handled it really well, even just like it was handled in my mind, handled in one line in it would have been Endgame, when Rocket's just like, "Why aren't you here?" And she goes, "Hey man, what's happening on Earth is happening literally everywhere else, and someone has to handle it." And at that point, like the Guardians are half gone, maybe over half gone, and they were historically doing more protecting in the wider galaxy, alongside Thor, but Thor is a mess. So like, who else is going to like? Thor is not, grabbing his hammer or
calling out Thor
and going anywhere at that point to save anyone. He's just not. So it's like, I think that makes, again, a ton of sense if we think broader picture here.
Ouch.
It's true though. He wasn't going anywhere. He was just sitting like.
Thor, you were struggling. Yes. Don't let Jared bring you down.
It's fine.
It's okay.
It's all good. I think that's a very simple and like very easy explanation of, again, yeah, she could just solve everything on Earth, but also like there's millions of other planets and galaxies that need attention as well, and they don't all have the Avengers. So great way to handle that, I think. And I think, yeah, bigger picture thinking would solve a lot of people's gripes about, no, you're wrong, some of these movies are bad. And what I just thought when you were talking about Ant-Man in particular, and we've talked about multiple times in this episode and other episodes about him being more of a comic relief. I think when you think about the broader picture, that he's part of this Avengers ensemble, this group of mostly enhanced individuals, or pretty much fairly enhanced individuals. If we were to see that in real life ever happen, they would not all be like Robert. They wouldn't all be like Iron Man with the swagger and the and that attitude and that confidence. They wouldn't all be like Cap with the whole like, I'm a soldier.
They'll be more like Bruce Banner. Yeah, like in terms of like, obviously taking the Hulk out of it, just the way he presents himself, more subdued, more like trying to hide, more trying to be more low key.
Well, and also like they would allow these. They were just normal people before that, so it's like, yeah, you're gonna have some people who are the cut ups of the group, and I think that makes it more real to have like someone be that comic relief of the group and not just be like a team of Iron Mans or Caps personality wise or attitude wise. Like you're gonna have people like Paul Rudd who just suddenly came across powers and then they have to decide, am I gonna do something with this or not? And that's not going to change. They're not going to stop being the resident cut up just because they have superpowers. Yeah. But you will have moments like in Endgame. I feel like we do see a big shift in Endgame from him. But again, because he's going through the trauma that everyone else is, where he has that moment on the patio with Tony. I regularly look that moment up and watch it all the time.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I feel like he has his like most serious moment. That's like, look, we have a chance to bring everyone back, and you can do it. And now you're telling me you won't even try, and like you can just see, I don't know, I feel like I saw a switch in him at that point. And great acting.
The thing about that moment too is I don't think a lot of people really realize is that they're the only two that at that moment in those circumstances are dealing with families. Mm-hmm. They haven't reconnected with Clint Barton yet at that point.
True.
So you're talking about like the people that they've gathered so far, and like those two are both Earthbound characters that like when you take away their tech, they're regular humans and they have families that they care about, and one of them has a family that he doesn't want to lose, and one of them has a family that he's already lost. Yeah. And they're negotiating essentially like, how do we both get what we want? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Tony does still care that like all these people are gone, but he's also like fiercely protective of what he has finally gotten.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So you're right, that is a pivotal moment, and the switch is definitely turned, because like you can have Cap come and talk to you can have Hulk come talk to you, but like I think having Scott Lang come talk to you, who knows exactly what you're going through, right?
Yes.
I'm not trying to like go after Cap or Hulk, but Cap's been out of time for a while. Yes, he has connections to the world, but it's a different kind of connections. And then Hulk, same thing. Like these two characters, Scott Lang and Tony Stark, they can relate on that level. With that experience being in this time with what they have had, or with Tony Stark currently has.
And I do think it is really great to see. It kind of goes back to maturity of Tony and his character to make that decision, because obviously when they're on that when they're on the porch in that scene, he doesn't even think it's possible. But then as soon as he discovers it is possible, he has that internal conflict right away, and he literally brings it to the most important person in the world at that time, and just like, shit, I think I can do this. I think I have to at least take a shot, and like I'm gonna have my personal goals within that plan. But I can't just, he makes the joke about I could drop this in the lake right now and go to bed. And she's like, that would not stop you.
Also, he wouldn't drop it.
He wouldn't be able to.
And she knew that. Which is why she says, you wouldn't be able to rest.
Beautifully done there. But yeah, so whether it's contributing to, a movie is contributing to the bigger picture with its themes or happenings, or even just like, I don't know, little moments can make the movies good too. Like going back to Ragnarok and that scene I mentioned in the elevators. That scene does give closure between Loki and Thor, and I guarantee you if we didn't get that scene, there'd be people bitching about that, because obviously we would still lose Loki then right after that, and people would go, oh, it's really a shame that we never got the closure with Thor and Loki, or they never had that deeper conversation to really kind of express what they were hinting at, they felt about each other in the movies but never fully expressed. So it's like, I feel like one moment can also make a movie, like even if that's the only good thing that comes out of the movie, That's a big deal. Like that would again cause a lot of gripe down the road if people didn't get it. In my opinion, I could be wrong, but that's just a thought I had.
Yeah, I think they have a really important conversation in Dark World too when they're heading off to go and fight the Dark Elves with Jane in tow. Like they have a pretty impactful conversation where they talk about their mom.
So true.
And they talk about obviously again the continued trauma of like what Loki did and how Thor had to stop him. And I think their journey is continually trying to recalibrate the equality and the dynamics in the relationship, because they're obviously unequal in the first movie, and Loki makes moves to change that vacuum in a sense. I would say going through the Avengers, Loki kind of has the upper hand, but Thor helps to change that. And then in Thor 2, it's kind of like this, hey, like I don't think we can look at you the same way again.
Oh, absolutely.
But like we still love you and care about you. What do we do about this? Like he doesn't want to trust him, he doesn't want to help him, but he needs him to accomplish his goal in that movie. And then when we go into Ragnarok, man, like I think Thor was content to let them go their separate ways. And Loki ends up coming back, and then we don't get to see the progress there, right? Because he's coming back, so it's sort of like this nice, very touching moment of, maybe this is gonna end well. Yeah. This is gonna end off in a way that benefits both sides. Yeah. And then it all comes to a crashing halt in the beginning of Infinity War, right? Yeah. That moment's probably undervalued. Just again, Thor went through a lot in that movie to somehow almost single-handedly be the savior in that movie, and then of course didn't. Yeah. But I don't think the trauma of seeing Loki die should be, because again, that's the last member of his family, and maybe the most troubled member of his family, but like they were making progress, right? They accepted Odin dying. Meaning they got to see him die. They got to talk to him one more time. Yeah. His mother died really, what's the word I would use here? I mean, abruptly, but also just brutally. Yeah. Like brutally. Brutally, yeah. So, Heimdall, kind of brutally as well.
I forgot about that one, yeah.
So, I guess, again, the whole reason why we're here, we're talking about these movies being good. You think about some of these things when you're just saying this movie's trash or this movie is like, you look at his entire trilogy, you might be one of those who wants to say up and down and up and down or whatever, but like look at the arcs. Arcs, they're incredible. And yes, a lot of the arcs in these movies have to flow through Avengers movies too, but that's what we signed up for with this universe now. And I think it's important that the progression is positive when you watch these movies and you're not saying, well, that really set him back or that kind of thing. That's why a lot of people say, like, in terms of what happens in the Avengers movies, Thor goes through really, really great progression.
Yes. I do love that. Again, I think more of the conversations in Ragnarok I feel like are what make the movie good, and specifically between Thor and Loki, because again, he has that one in the dungeon, or they have that one in the dungeon too, or when Thor's in the dungeon. Yeah. And Thor kind of goes off on Loki about, look, everything bad that's happened is because of you. And he has that line that specific line where he says, "Is that enough, or do you want me to go back further than the last 2 days?" And I feel like there you could really he could have been, you can really extrapolate that and be like, oh yeah, he's not talking about just like a week. He's talking about, look, our mother dying, could have been, or based,
Look at the list here, yeah.
There's a list, exactly. And it's like, just pointing that out to him is like, again, probably had a lot of built-up trauma there, a lot of things he wanted to say there. But anyway, I think why a lot of people wouldn't agree with what you said, but I talked about how they kind of have to go through sometimes the whole trilogy, or even sometimes through an Avengers movie. I think we can all agree that, through Endgame, the whole Endgame arc, of however many projects that is, 30-some projects. That was never done before. Like, this is the first time anyone's ever done something like that.
Yeah, Marvel Studios is going to go down in history.
And so, yes, we're not used to that. Like, so obviously you're probably partially just thinking things are bad because you're not getting that immediate gratification, or you're not getting the answers you want right away. And sure, part of that is natural because that's just how movies have been up until this point. I think literally that project changed the game. Is anyone going to do that ever again? Probably not to that extent, but I think it opens up a lot of possibilities in the future, because I think a lot of people are getting sick of, just the current state of movies and how they go about these days. So maybe we'll see projects like that again. I don't know, but bottom line, I think a lot of the complaints just come from the fact that it is such an unusual structure and an unusual path to the ultimate conclusion and gratification that they're seeking. But that doesn't make them bad movies. That just means we have to be patient. We've said that so many times, but it's so true. Just be patient.
Yeah.
They're keeping track of all this stuff, all these complaints that you have. They're definitely writing them down before you even complain about them, and are addressing them, or at least making a note. Like someone's raising a hand in a meeting, going, "Hey guys, someone's going to ask about that giant statue we just put in the ocean. So like, when are we going to do that?"
I always laugh because I look at Iron Man's trilogy, right, and it was done in 5 years, like because things were just starting off. He was a pillar character. People, there's always questions split up at the end of movies, and they got answered pretty quickly in terms of like those main storylines. And then, of course, he was a big player in Avengers movies and a side character in a lot of other movies. So like the storyline continues, right? This is one of the weirder things in the MCU, and I like bringing it up because it makes me laugh. So Guardians 2 happened in Phase 3. Okay. That was the third movie in Phase 3.
Okay.
That was in 2017, okay? The next movie after that was Spider-Man Homecoming. That was our introduction to Spider-Man officially, right? We got the whole trilogy of Spider-Man movies before we had Guardians 3.
That's crazy.
They took the whole trilogy of Spider-Man movies before we got Resolution. Now, yes, we did get to see them in Endgame.
Of course.
But I point that out because, like, again, they get to decide how they want to do this and the order and like the progression. We've got so many franchises right now, and it's just like they can only do so many movies a year. I think we've kind of seen that their limit really is probably 3. They can do 4, but 3 is probably best because then there's some space, there's some time, they can develop, they can do those things. So sometimes you're gonna have to wait for storylines to advance because these characters aren't going to show up in all these other movies.
Yes,
and Spider-Man also showed up in 2 other Avengers movies during that time too. So you're getting all these Spider-Man appearances. Meanwhile, it's like, what's going on with the Guardians? I would say people are pretty pleased with how that movie ended up, right? Yeah. Just in general. And, putting aside Disney Plus being an available avenue as well now, I think impatience is ruining sort of the expectations when it comes to impressions of movies too.
Absolutely.
I can't really speak to kind of like spoilers and rumors and things like that. I know some people get big into that and others try and stay away from it. I try my best not to read too much into them in general, and then obviously stuff that you're really excited about and expecting. It's nice to go in with surprises, so it's not always the best when you have to okay, I've heard this, I've heard that, I've heard this plot beat and that plot beat. It's like it's always nice to discover those when you sit down. When you sit down and watch a movie for the first time, little about it. It's awesome, and that's why we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but like when I look at what point would I say when I look at like Thor Ragnarok until Spider-Man Far From Home, in terms of like building the trailers, in terms of the hype and holding things back, that's kind of when they were at their peak. There was always something big that you was revealed in the movie that you weren't ready for, and especially in terms of Infinity War and Endgame, like you again going in not knowing a ton and just getting to enjoy those experiences are great.
Yes.
Not that the experience has been ruined recently; it's definitely been altered. It's tough. It makes it harder, but I mean, my main point here, and there's definitely some people I'm just not going to be able to sway. So it is what it is. But I have never walked out of a Marvel movie thinking I wasted my time. And again, if I would say you can certainly say you can have disappointments in it. We talked about our experience with Captain America. We definitely had disappointments in it, but it's still a good movie. Same thing with Doctor Strange. Same thing with Thor: Love and Thunder. Like, there can be disappointments. It can still be a good movie. It can still be a worthy movie. So I don't like this drastic. Oh, it sucked. It's over. Like, what are we gonna do? Like, people need to reset and have realistic expectations. And it starts with not expecting everything to be endgame level. It starts with allowing movies to have a clean canvas to be judged on, and not say, well, if I don't see this, this, and this, or if this doesn't go well, I just not gonna like this. Those kinds of things, We're going into a stretch where we're having some big tentpole movies, some character with a lot of characters that frankly we're very familiar with, even with Fantastic Four, which is like this new characters, but like again, you know the story, it's been told, right? We're gonna tell it a little differently. And then Avengers movies, which are generally well received. This is gonna be one of those expectation comparison things again. So the main point's always gonna be here, and you know, maybe in 10 years I'll look back and say, all right, they finally hit their stretch where they started making bad movies. But I sincerely think right now, I just cannot agree with the statement that there are any bad MCU movies. I think they're all good. I think they're all important, and I think they all tell worthy stories. And I'm not, but I don't think that's a hot take in the sense that, like, I don't think I'm saying that they're all, like, every year that those movies come out, they all belong on a top 10 list. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they are all good, and I think good is there's a low floor there where movies that aren't particularly well made can still be good.
Yes.
You know, a good movie can still be a 6 out of 10. And I'm not going to get into Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb and stuff like that, but like everybody has a different sort of floor for where a good movie starts, whether it's 60%, whether it's 7 out of 10, whether it's 2 out of 5 stars. All I'm saying is that, like, you can have different benchmarks. I still think that these movies are good because you don't cross this line and the movie's awful, and you don't cross this line and this movie is like the best ever, right? That there is shades here, and you can go do different tiers and things like that, and that's where my that's where the root of my argument lies.
I love that. I love that analogy. I was already like pretty on board with this when you pitched it to me, and now I've like heard you break it down further, and I'm 100% on board. I agree. I have no more notes, or I would only not contribute as well as you did with any other comments. And we're at a decent time, so we can move on to our outro topic and what is coming up, which we mainly want to talk about Fantastic Four and Thunderbolts. We got a teaser or a minute and a half trailer during the Super Bowl for Fantastic Four.
Yep.
Reactions, thoughts on this trailer?
I get the impression that, again, it's a team, getting another team up, but it's a team that they spend a lot of time together. They are part of other teams. But it's also like a family, and they really, you know, at hazard of sounding like I'm this huge Fast and Furious fan, which I am not, by the way. We'll have to break that down sometime.
We'll see.
But they really kind of lean on that in the trailer. It's a really good trailer, kind of highlighting every member of it, and then I believe it is Sue who's sort of like talking about like each member and what they bring to the team and how that they're going to like be a family as they deal with this. It's a very close-knit group. You know, you've got 2 of them are family members. Sue's married to Mr. Fantastic, and then his best friend is also really good friends too. Like it's a very tight knit relationships here, and they all are what, you know, we want to talk about trauma. What they went through was not intentional, so they're all having to grapple with how their lives have changed. I'm really interested to see how they portray that in this movie too, because it's been done in 2 ways already, and I think you could still definitely change the way it's done and change the stakes and that kind of thing. I think because they've kind of they haven't bound them to our current universe in terms of like expectations. They they're doing their own thing. I invite everybody to watch the trailer because this world that they're in looks super cool.
It does.
It's this blend of futuristic but with retro sort of aesthetic that is super interesting. And I assume that Mr. Fantastic is a big part of that. I'm sure he's had a role to play in sort of like the inventions and technology and stuff. I'm sure there's some other players in that realm as well, you know, Dr. Doom, things like that. Anyway, so I'm just super excited. I think they taking it and letting it do its own thing, letting it breathe, and then deciding what story they want to tell. I think it's going to be really fun, and then it's going to set it apart from the other heroes that we know, so that when they do interact, they're going to have different things to talk about, different experiences. So I think it's super cool what they have done. I love the look of it. I love the tone of it. It actually, you know, when I talk about mature, it looks like it's kind of looking more serious, more grounded.
Yes.
Even though it is this different sort of built universe. But I'm excited, man. I feel like you have to get it right this time.
Yes.
And it certainly seems like even if, let's say, it's a disaster, they're kind of locked in because we're going to see these characters again. But I have a really good feeling about this one. I'm feeling like Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther vibes of just that new property that really blows up and gets people excited again.
Absolutely. No, I agree. I'm also curious to see how they play or how they insert them into the current universe. And also, I don't know, my only real experience with the Fantastic Four before this was the Silver Surfer. Like, I watched that movie and that was about it.
Cult classic.
Yep. Never watched the didn't they do a movie with like Miles Teller and something?
Haven't watched it.
Yep, I have no interest in that one. Or Michael B. Jordan, whoever was in that. No interest in that. I thought the Silver Surfer was good.
Yeah.
But it's also been a minute since I've watched that. I agree. I think it looks clean. I think it looks more futuristic in a sense. And I think a lot of people have been waiting for this, for them to like be inserted into this universe. So that does concern me because I think expectations are high. And again, we've talked about where that ultimately leads or has led in recent history. But
which of the four are you most excited about?
Pedro, which I was going to actually lean into. I think, I just love everything he's been touching lately, which gives me confidence for this movie. Even though, again, I think expectations are high, and I don't know how they're going to quite fit in just yet.
He's busy.
Everything Pedro Pascal touches these days is great. And I'm including the SNL skit he was on recently, like literally everything. So I'm excited. I think the only complaints I really heard or worries I've heard so far is I think some people have talked about The Thing, and they're like, he doesn't look great. I'm like, that's such a dumb thing to complain about.
I'm actually confused by that because I think it looks fine. Fantastic, including the sound effects when he moves.
Yes, those are great, and even just like the look of him. Like, what do you expect? Like, let's think about in general again. If this were to actually happen in real life, you think he would just be a chiseled rock with abs and like what do you think? I don't know. People are dumb.
I don't understand expectations
sometimes. So I am very excited as someone who, again, hasn't had much experience with the Fantastic Four before and is more familiar with like other projects. I want to go see this, and like even just like the shadow of the probably antagonist in the movie. I'm like, oh shit, things are about to get real. I'm a little nervous, but I think it's a good nervous, and I think overall it's going to be good. So there's that. But before that, the little next project we get is Thunderbolts.
Yeah. I guess first I want to just say we talked a little bit about like surprises holding back. So talking about Fantastic Four, I would have loved if they had just held down that Galactus is going to be in it. I think that would have been a cool surprise.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And then with Thunderbolts, I'm not going to say it, although if you're smart enough and you've been watching enough, you probably already know if you're a comic person. But they've just kind of gone a bit too far with the marketing for a certain person in the movie. It's becoming kind of clear what they're going to be, and I'm just kind of like, it would have been really fun to just be very coy about that, but it's basically out there now. I'm not going to say it just because maybe somebody doesn't want it to have it ruined.
No, but
I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I think you're right. That's interesting that they've kind of been doing that lately. I mean, it's only a couple, so maybe it's not quite enough to be a pattern yet.
Yeah.
But maybe they're because maybe they're seeing. I know, like it is a struggle to get people to come see movies these days.
It could be.
I think that's across the board. So maybe I don't know if it's just like, hey, if you come to this is what you'll see. I don't think that's a great way to handle it, but I'm not on those teams. So,
but yeah, I am excited for it. It looks really good.
Yes.
I think the action in it looks really good. I think it's a really unique blend of characters. I know a lot of people don't probably care about this character, but I'm really excited to see what Ghost has been up to.
Yeah,
because I think she's just one of those like lost, forgotten. I don't really care about these characters because maybe not a lot of people cared about Ant-Man and the Wasp. But I thought her story was pretty compelling.
Yeah.
And then always good to check in with Yelena.
Yes.
I think she's fantastic. Bucky, the art just continues and continues and continues, and this is a big one here to see what happens. I was actually more afraid about his potential fate in this movie. I still am just because when you talk about more storytelling, flashbacks are a thing, and those kinds of things. So, like, I think you should still be worried about every character in this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I am super stoked for a lot of those interactions.
Yes.
Especially Bucky and Red Guardian. I think that's going to be fantastic.
Oh my God. Yeah, and I am very excited to see Bucky. I'm a little too held up on the fact that we did see him in Brave New World, and now he's running for Congress.
Future congressman.
Yeah, future congressman. So I don't know if he's running or elected or whatever. But so he somehow now has to go from that to what his character in Thunderbolts, and I'm just like, I don't know. They probably have a plan for it. Again, let them cook. But I'm also like, why did they could have still had Bucky appear in Brave New World to give Sam his little encouragement speech, and then leave and just be like, oh, that's Sergeant Barnes instead of, oh, it's future Congressman Bucky Barnes. Like, I feel like we were all kind of just like, what? And then he just pieced out.
I think he's just going to be the first U.S. Congressman to help save the world. That's all.
Maybe, and now I'd be fine with that too. They must have, again, they got to have a plan for it, I'm sure. So anyway, yeah, I'm excited for that. I do think in general it looks good, and I'm excited that it's, yeah, I guess I didn't think about how much it's going to mirror Suicide Squad, and I get why people are saying that, but I'm kind of excited to see the team of, yeah, not misfits, but not a ton of superpowers going around that group. And I know you mentioned being excited to see Ghost. I'm kind of excited to see Taskmaster and just to see, are they going to talk to her more? Is she going to be just like a silent character the whole? Yeah, because I feel like they obviously lots of trauma there to unpack.
Yeah,
and I feel like there's potential to do something with that. So whether they lean into that or not, I don't know.
Yeah, because in Black Widow, she was being taken away by the other rescued widows, right?
Yes.
So did she just get rehabilitated enough to do things on her own, or is somebody pulling her strings still? Like maybe, hopefully not in this mind control sense, but maybe if she's being employed by some, you know what I mean? Like, I kind of wanted to be making her own decisions, but it definitely seems like each character is driven to, what am I trying to say here? They all converge for a specific reason, and I think that's probably the big question. Like, why did all these people end up at the same place when they do? And then, obviously, how does it progress from there? That's actually something they haven't really even sort of teased.
Right.
So I think that's going to be really fun to see. Why did they all end up there?
The only thing we know is, or motivation we have at this moment, is Julia Louis-Dreyfus. That's it. Just her just showing up and assembling the Dark Avengers.
You can definitely count on her having some nefarious intentions.
Yes.
Because she's clearly had her own agenda the entire time. She's since she's been introduced.
But we have no idea who she's working for. If she's just working for herself, we don't know. She's very much just a here's my number, I'll call you type of thing, or not even here's my number, just I will call you. But no, my call is coming.
You'll be hearing from me. Exactly. You better listen.
Yeah. So, wow, that was a great recording. I think great episode. We talked about a lot, and now I have to think a lot about what our next topic is going to be. We might have to stray a little from Marvel, but we will see. I'm sure we both have ideas that we can.
Oh, we do.
Well, then, we're going to get ready to wrap it up here. Kobe, any highlights you want to talk about in your personal life before we duck out of here?
I think the big thing, I will be a clinical student by the time our next podcast comes out, so that's going to be fun. I'm going to be putting my skills to good use, so I'm excited for that. Be doing some x-rays and examining patients and all that fun stuff. If you aren't already, start watching Daredevil. It's back. Fantastic. It's nice to have Daredevil back, so highly recommend that. And
I should watch that. You just came from volleyball, or not volleyball, dodgeball training camp, so dodgeball's going to start up
new
again.
Dodgeball season, so I'll be busy with that. Excited for Frisbee season upcoming too. So, unfortunately, even though the temperatures have indicated that winter's almost over, we did get a snowstorm tonight. So, Minnesota is gonna do what it will. So.
I was just gonna say too, I'm about to start up my next season of sports, but it's volleyball, and we're transitioning to outdoor play now. But I tell you, if we keep getting this crap, we're supposed to play 2 weeks from today as our first game. I don't know if that's gonna happen, or 3 weeks, I think technically. So there's time, but I don't know. We had a day that it was 70 degrees last week, and now we're getting snow again. So.
Yep.
I don't know what to think. But I'm so excited for you for your clinicals. Congratulations again on getting accepted. That was a really great message to receive. I know you've been working your butt off for that. What have I been up to? Some of you are probably hear from my other content. Some of you probably aren't, but I do my part-time bartending. I started a new job. Very happy at this new bar. I just got done with all the intense training I had to do. It was a lot. Glad it's over with now, and now I will just go back to my casual stuff. Other than that, staying busy as ever, because I do that a few days a week. I do volleyball now. Kobe and I have both been having social obligations as well, and people we've been seeing more regularly as well, so that takes up time as well. And then, Lydia is keeping me busy as well. So, just trying to really focus on, I've always been a very go, do stuff all the time person, but I feel like I'm getting to the point now where it's like I really got to choose the few things I want to actually do and just give them time and clear the other things off my schedule as heartbreaking as that might be. But there are a lot of weeks, I've been telling you lately, where I've had one free night of the week, and it's like I do absolutely nothing on those nights because I just need the time to reset. So
it's really important these days.
It is. Especially. So that being said, everyone take care of yourselves and take the physical and mental breaks that you need, because it's rough out there these days. But know that you have support systems, and don't be afraid to lean on those. So
get help when you need it.
Yes.
Take breaks, reset.
Yes.
A lot going on in the world. I'm sure a lot going on all the time. It's easy to kind of get lost, but lean on the people that you care about and love and check in. You know, that's big too.
And, we hope that, if nothing else, you listening to these or watching these helps make you smile, or helps give you a little break from everything that's going on these days. We just do them because we're having a lot of fun here. But
lots of fun.
That being said, that is going to wrap up episode 4. That was a long time coming. Like I said, I think episode 3 we recorded in December. And I wanted to try to do an episode every month for both of my podcasts that I'm trying to do. And this is the first one I've done for either of them in the new year. So we will see what the new frequency becomes. But again, for now, we're just doing these for fun and not our full-time gig. So we will see you when we see you. We'll be happy to see you when we do. And we'll have a lot more fun stuff to talk about, whether it's Marvel or Star Wars or maybe the Fast and Furious, since you brought that up. That would be an interesting...
It's all about family.
Jeez. Okay. Well, on that note, I think we are out of here. Kobe, thank you again for coming. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you as always.
And we will see you next time.